Greetings, Mountain family. Welcome back to my home. I'm so happy to have you with me today. Today I have a very special no-sew fall project for you called Ragamuffin Garland. And it is a festive yet rustic project that would be a nice addition if you like to decorate your home for the different seasons. There's a chill in the air. The first day of fall has passed us by, and so I've got on a pot of scratch chicken and dumplings, and I want to share that recipe with you. So before we start our project today, I'm going to take you with me to the stove. I bought a Sunday roaster hen, which is a big old fat hen. We're going to give her a nice bath with some seasonings and get a good base started for our dumplings. And then after I show you how to do that, while she's cooking, we're going to come back to the table and I'm going to show you this very simple, fast and easy ragamuffin fall garland. So go with me to the stove and we'll kind of go back and forth getting our recipes and our projects together today. All right, folks, let's make some chicken and dumplings. I used Pam spray to spray my pot. We are going to be adding a flour dumpling and we don't want that to stick to the bottom. I have a Sunday roaster. That is a big old hen, and I use that because it is bigger, it has more fat content, it's going to give us a richer broth, has some more breast meat on it, which is my favorite. So I have washed this chicken off, made sure that there were no innards or anything inside. I cleaned it out. Sometimes, like a turkey, there'll be a neck bone or livers or things like that inside. So we cleaned it out. I do want you to check for pin feathers near the wings and at the legs. I think I pulled all of these, but every now and then the butcher will leave a few pin feathers that you need to pluck. So I'm going to show you how I get my broth started. Let me wash my hands since I touched the chicken, and I'll show you what few ingredients I used to get this delicious, rich broth going. I used the Pam spray so that we can ensure that our dumplings don't stick. I use regular salt and pepper. I love this. It's Jane's, see if it'll focus. Jane's Crazy Mixed Up Salt. This gives great flavor to anything. I use this in so many of my recipes. Better Than Bouillon, and it is the roasted chicken flavor. I put bouillon in my broth because I want it to be really rich and have a rich chicken flavor. I don't want just dumpling water. I'm even going to throw in a couple blocks of the Knorr chicken bouillon and add a little bit of poultry seasoning. Poultry seasoning will go both in my broth and in my dumplings. So let me show you how I easily add these ingredients and we'll get our broth started. Alright, I've moved my chicken back off the eye so that you can see how I prepare the bouillon with water. So again, we have the Better Than Bouillon roasted chicken flavor. I don't measure in cooking. I measure, well, I shouldn't say all the time, but most of the time I don't measure when cooking. I do measure when baking. That's a whole different ball game. I told you I want this rich. So I'm using what's called a serving spoon. And I heaped it full. I'm using my finger. They're clean. And so that's about how much bouillon we want to start with. That's the bouillon base. So I'm going to fill this up with water right at 2 quarts. I have a 2-quart bowl here. And I'll bring it back and show you what it looks like when you whisked it together with water. Alright, so I've just put my water in. And I'm going to take my whisk and just gently start to mix in that base. Now warm water is going to help it dissolve quicker. You can see the color. It's getting rich, and this gives a really pretty color to your dumplings. I like my broth to be a little yellow. I like a little bit of that yellow fat floating at the top. It just makes them look so appetizing. Okay. So once you have all of that mixed together, it's a really pretty rich yellow color. Might even be richer looking in person than on camera. Again, I'm going to pull my clean chicken up here and I've put it breast side down. A lot of you ladies already know this and gentlemen, but anytime that you're cooking with poultry, put the breast side down. And I'm not so sure that it makes a huge difference in boiling it in water, but it will especially make a difference if you're putting it in a crock pot or putting it in your oven. You want to put it breast side down because all those juices will run down into that breast. That breast meat gets drier than your dark meat, and you don't want that to happen. So when those juices can run down into the breast during the whole cooking time, that's going to make it really juicy and flavorful. So I just use that anytime I'm cooking with poultry as good practice. So it's breast side down. And I'm going to gently add my water and bouillon. There might be a little bit left in the bottom. Break out what you can. We will be adding more water later. Alright, I'm going to take my Knorr chicken bouillon cubes. And I know y'all think this is a lot, overkill, but I swear it gives it just the best flavor. So I'm going to add 2 because they're pretty big. And I've already added a whole lot of bouillon paste. This is bouillon 2. It's just in different forms. Alright, so 2 of those. More water. We want the hen completely covered. A little more. This should do it. Yeah. So the hen is causing displacement. You know, you want a lot of broth in your dumplings. So they don't get thick. And this is a pretty good sized pot. I'm not sure what size, but so I try to get my liquid as close to the top as possible without cooking over, because when you take that hen out, you know, obviously your volume's going to go down quite a bit. But we're going to add more stuff to it to make up for that. So let's get this ready. I'm going to start with Jane's Crazy Mixed Up Salt. And I'm pretty liberal with it. This is a lot of water. Now, if it bothers you that there are little flecks in that, then you don't have to use it. You can just use salt if you want to. It doesn't bother me. You're not even going to notice it. By the time this all cooks down and you get those chicken pieces in there. Alright, that feels good. You just gotta go by feel. Poultry seasoning. I don't add a whole lot of that. Just a good sprinkle. We'll add some regular salt. And a little bit of pepper. Now when we do our dumplings, I'm going to show you what I like to do with white pepper. That might be new to some of you, but I love white pepper. It's good if you don't want to see black flecks in your product or in your food. And it has a different taste, and I just love the taste that it gives. So I'm going to go in and kind of mix this all in my broth. Don't turn your chicken over. Keep it breast side down, but you can swirl it around a little bit. Now this is going to take a while. That's a big old hen. Again, it's a roasting hen, so it's larger than just your regular little, like Cornish hen or chicken. So I've got it turned on about, on my gas top, about an 8. I could even go high. Let it come up to temperature, to boiling, to about high, and then turn it down to medium high because you don't want it to cook over. We're going to cook this for an hour at least before we even check to see how much longer we need to go. You know, again, every hen is a different size, so it's going to take a different amount of time to cook. We'll know by that color and that richness. We'll know by the look of our bird if it's ready to go, and then we'll start making our dumplings. But in the meantime, while we're preparing this delicious broth, I want to take you to my kitchen table and do a no-sew fall fabric craft that is just going to add a warm and cozy feel to your house. It lets you use some fun, festive fabrics without even having to get out a needle and thread. So meet me at my kitchen table and we'll let this bird take a bath for a while. So if you notice, I'm not in my sewing studio. I'm at my kitchen table. I didn't even have to mess my table up. My placemats are out. I simply moved one placemat. If you have something that's safe to cut on, just so that you don't ruin your nice table, I have just a very small, cheap cutting mat that I bought at Walmart a long time ago. I have a fall jelly roll, and I'm going to bring you closer in a minute so you can see everything up close. But just to get started, so you'll know what you need, this is called Squirrely Girl, and I've been excited to use this jelly roll. It has the pumpkins and leaves and acorns and polka dots and plaids, oranges, browns, creams, taupes, all the colors that we recognize when fall is in the air. I have some jute cord, very inexpensive. You can order it online. You can get it at any of your local stores such as Walmart, Target, maybe even the dollar store. So I have pre-measured my fireplace because this Ragamuffin Garland is what I want to use to decorate my fireplace. I already have a few things up, but I think this little garland is so pretty. And so I have pre-measured my jute to go across my fireplace and how far I want it to hang down on the sides. So that's your first step. Now, you know I love jelly rolls. That's primarily what the pre-cut that I sew with. But also this past weekend, which was Saturday, September 19th, I guess, it was National Jelly Roll Day. And so we're a little bit behind, but we're going to say that this Ragamuffin project is in honor of Jelly Roll Day. And to show you that if you enjoy pretty fabric, but maybe you're just not ready to start sewing, that you can still use these beautiful pre-cuts in your home. I have a rotary cutter. You can use scissors. You don't need any fancy tools. I did buy a pinking blade, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. That's just going to help our fabric to not fray so that our Ragamuffin Garland lasts longer. So let me bring you closer, set you up at the table, and I'll show you how fast and simple this Ragamuffin Garland is. All right, so let's get started. This was the piece I used to test how long I wanted my strips to be. And so it measures on my board right at 9 inches. Alright, so I have my light orange strips. They are not stacked perfectly. I got them as close to perfect as I can, starting with the selvage edge because we want to make sure we get the selvage cut off. And this is my light orange stack. So first, you need to realize that I did keep the strip folded in half. They're 42-inch strips. Now, this may bother some of you. I did not divide in order to make strips cut evenly for no waste. I wanted a 9-inch strip. And so we will use what we would call waste. We won't throw it away. We'll use it for a table runner or a table topper that will match, that can go on the coffee table, that would match your fireplace or wherever you so choose to put this project. First, get rid of the selvage. Discard it. line your ends up. I'm gonna find the 9-inch mark. Notice I do not have a ruler to make exact cuts. We are not quilting. This is a project. This is Ragamuffin. It's rustic. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm just gonna start on that 9-inch line, make a cut, pull it down again, 9 inches. So now I have a stack of light orange 9-inch strips. All right, so let's get our light browns. Let's cut the rest of these up and then we'll start tying it on our jute cord. I'm gonna take my jute and meet the ends together because I want to find the middle. I like to start tying in the middle and work my way out. So here's my middle, and I want to start with an orange. I'm going to use an orange acorn piece, one of our 9-inch strips. Now, they make honey bun strips, which are 1.5-inch strips that this would be a really great project to do with as well. But it's jelly roll celebration, and I use jelly rolls, so that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna put that through there with my jute laying against the wrong side of the fabric. Pull it up. Like tying a shoe. Just try to make sure your ends are even, but it's okay if they're not because like I said, this is Ragamuffin, it's rustic. Now that does not look like much, but by the time that we tie all of these pieces, and we're gonna, you know, alternate. So I'm gonna put a polka dot on next, and I'm gonna go down one side first, and then I'll go down the second side. Just come right under here. There we go. 2 knots. And of course you can play with it. You can make it flip-flop different ways to make it more full. And you can do that more so when you get all of your strips tied on. So I'm just going to start tying. Broth looks good. You can see it's cooked way down. I'm going to try to flip old girl over here just to make sure we get that back cooked up. You can see the skin's pulling away. This is done. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off. Let that sit another minute. After it quits bubbling, I'm going to take the chicken out, put it in a roaster, let it start to cool so I can pick all the meat off the bone, and we'll get our dumplings ready to roll out. Look at that good, that is just flavor right there. So good. I do want to note that if I had some extra chicken fat, I would have put that in here. That chicken fat is just going to make it rich in flavor, but I didn't have any extra fat. Sometimes you can get it at the store. You can get your butcher to give it to you. Or if I'm cooking chicken breasts or something, I'll trim the fat away and save it for a pot of dumplings. But this looks good. I think it's going to be just fine. All right, so let's start on what a lot of people believe is the hardest part of making dumplings. It's not hard. It's just practicing and getting it to the flavor that you like. It's very few ingredients, but it's all about how thin you roll it out, the consistency, how you flavor it, what you put in it. So I'm going to show you how I do it. You can change it, tweak it to your liking, but they're really not hard. Really, if anything, they're just a little time consuming. But they're definitely worth it. So here I have 4 cups of self-rising flour. And you know, I mentioned when I did my apple pie video that I'd love to have a bread bowl. And so my mama had one that she had received as a gift years ago, and she gave it to me. And so, thank you, Mom. I appreciate that. It'll be a keepsake. So I've got my 4 cups of self-rising flour. And I want to start with what I call my secret ingredient. I love white pepper. White pepper is so good in soups, especially creamy soups. It's good in doughs that are meant to be savory. And so it is strong, but again, I don't really measure, so I'm just going to watch and let you see how much I add. It's a lot of flour. You're going to add milk. So I'm pretty liberal with my seasonings because I really want it to taste more of my Crazy Jane. So good. Poultry seasoning. Just a little bit. This is strong. Some salt. That should be good. That was a couple pinches. This is what I consider a pinch. I might have showed you on another episode, but if it cups in my hand, whatever I can pinch out, that's a pinch. All right, so I'm going to use a fork to get this kind of mixed together. My Aunt Beatty Barton, my Mama Oliva Barton, Ollie Fusen, my Aunt Alma Owens, they all made such good chicken and dumplings. Of course, my mother makes them. My Aunt Evelyn makes them. If I'm missing somebody, I'm sorry. There's a lot of folks out there that make some good chicken and dumplings, but those are the ladies that I watched growing up through the years. And so I wanted mine to look like theirs. My Aunt Beatty's, I remember hers in particular. They always looked so good. They had a little bit of fat just floating at the top. And I asked my Mama Barton how they achieved that. And that's when she told me you have to buy extra fat from the butcher and add to it. It gives it a lot of flavor. So I've got all of my seasonings stirred in. And I do have kind of another secret ingredient here that some of you might not have on hand. If you don't, Crisco shortening is fine. But my dad rendered some lard that he had when we had a hog killed for fresh meat, and he rendered the lard. I'll show you sometime on a video how he did that. This is so good. It gives your dumplings so much flavor. So I'm going to start out with a half a cup of this lard. If you don't have it, like I said, just use Crisco shortening. They'll be good. This just kind of puts it over the top just a little bit. I'm going to heap it up some because you can't always get it out. So about that much. So I'm gonna go take my jewelry off, wash my hands, and we'll get in here and incorporate this lard with this flour mixture. All right, just like we did with the apple pies, when we put lard in our dough, we're gonna cover it up and we're gonna use our hands to work it down. Make sure that the flour and the lard are mixed evenly. Now the lard's gonna feel a little different in your hands than Crisco would. It's both greasy, but for some reason the lard just feels better. Again, it's adding another layer of flavor to your dumplings. You know, back in the old days, they didn't run to the store for Crisco. They used what they had from killing their animals. And so they all had rendered lard, and that's what they used with their biscuits and doughs and dumplings. You're going to see it start to develop a crumbly texture. It's not going to be real fine anymore. It's going to be like coarse little pebbles. When I think of chicken and dumplings, I think of two things: church and fall. We always have chicken and dumplings at our homecomings. Here in the Bible Belt where I live, homecomings are a big deal. Churches will choose a Sunday starting in summer and extending through the early fall. And maybe folks who have moved away and maybe they were saved at that church, or they used to be members there, they're not anymore. Of course, they're always welcome, but on that particular day, they have a special invitation to come back, and family maybe who we haven't seen in a while, we invite them to come, and anybody's always welcome. But homecoming is just a special gathering, and you always have a big crowd, and you have to feed them. You want to feed them. Anytime that you invite someone like that, you want to make sure they left fed both spiritually and physically full. So after service, we always had special singing and a special preacher. Everybody always got all dressed up, usually bought new clothes, wore their best. Back in the old days, they called it dinner on the ground. You know, they'd bring their quilts and spread it out and have a meal on the ground, and then they'd go back in after lunch and have another meeting. So now we have fellowship halls or outdoor shelters, but there's always, I promise you, any homecoming you go to here in the Bible Belt, there's always going to be a big old pot of pretty dumplings that somebody has made. And then, of course, when the chill is in the air for fall, I want something warm, and I always connect that thought to chicken and dumplings with the fall. So there we go. You can see my consistency's changed, and once again, it goes on feel. So you just have to get in there and feel it for yourself. But it feels good to me. That lard is all mixed in. All right, so now I'm gonna add 1 cup of cold water. I'm just going to use the spoon that I used to get my lard out to start mixing it together. And then we'll go back in with our hands here in just a minute. It's all about the consistency. Getting a feel for things is a huge part of country cooking. I am not an expert. I'm just showing you how I do it. There's a lot of ladies in this area who can cook far better than me. I couldn't pack their lunch, but I like to learn from them. If I don't try, I'll never get there. All right, so that's feeling pretty good. So let's go in and see if we can make it into a ball. Might add just a little more water so it don't come apart. Got another 4th cut. Feels right. You can always add more flour when you get it back out on your countertop to roll out. Yep. Looks good. So I can pick it up, form it into a ball. So I'm ready to roll it out. So let's clear the area. We'll heavily flour our countertop, and I'll show you how thin you need to roll them out in order to get a good dumpling. Okay, so I've heavily floured the area. Just gonna work my dough a little bit, not much. Working dough, overworking it makes it tough. All right, I'm gonna cut this into quarters. Flour your edges. I'll put this over in my bowl until I'm ready for it. I went ahead, my broth looks good, so I went ahead and turned it on medium heat. Now the key to this is you don't want your broth to be so hot that your dumplings just go away to nothing. So I use about medium heat just to see how they're gonna do. And then you can always turn it up or down according to your stove temperature. All right, so we're gonna start rolling. Dumpling dough will require a little bit of elbow grease to get rolled out as thin as you're gonna need it. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna cut it in probably 2-inch strips, 2.5. And there's a reason for that. They're still not thin enough to put into the broth. I'm just gonna move my strips to the side. If they start to stick, you'll be able to feel it as you pull it up from your countertop. So we'll need to reflour. And I work with a strip at a time. It takes a little time, but the effort is worth it because you're gonna get a really nice dumpling. So I'm gonna flour my rolling pin. And this one strip, I'm gonna get it as thin as possible. So thin you can almost see through it. To the point you'll have to have your knife help you pick it up. All right, let's cut this in half. That looks good. Super thin, paper thin. If I hold that up to the light, I can see through it. And so what I'm gonna do when I get over to my pot, I'm just gonna tear squares about that big. I like a good sized dumpling. So we're just gonna tear it and drop it down in the pot. I'll show you one more strip. I usually just take 2 or 3 strips. I lay them over my arm and I will line them up here and take them to the pot all at once and just tear and drop. So let's go over to the stove. I'll show you how to do this. So here you can see I've just dropped my dumplings in on top. Do not stir your dumplings. Just press them. you don't want to over stir them or they'll turn to mush. And that's why you want your heat at medium. They'll just go away to nothing. So just kind of press your dumplings down in. We'll let them sit just a little bit. Just sit and simmer. I've used, at this point, I have used about 3/4 of the dough. I'm going to save that other quarter for another time. By the time I get my chicken in here, this will be plenty. So just after you add a layer of dumplings, press them in. Once they're moist, add another layer. That's about all you want to do. And let's just let them cook a little bit longer. I'll bring you back when it's finished. Alright, here is our finished pot of scratch homemade chicken and dumplings. I do want to make note that I put my chicken in right at the end. I don't want it to get stringy. I like a big hunk of chicken. So, you do it how you like it, but again, I recommend taste testing before you serve. You may want to add a little more broth. You can always add water. You can put more bouillon in your water. You might want to add salt, pepper. Just make it to your liking. But you can see here what a pretty ribbon of a dumpling that is. And remember, when you do put them in, put a layer on, push them down, put another layer on, push them down so that they don't stick together. I had that happen on a couple of mine tonight. So I hope you enjoy this recipe. I'm going to go and get me a bowl of this with a piece of cornbread and hang my Ragamuffin Garland, and I'll show you the finished product.